Longarm quilting stuff. I am okay, so we're gonna load a piece of scrap fabric. This is a muslin that I get from Joanne, I believe, and it is a unbleached durable muslin, and it was like $2 a yard. I think I got it on sale, so it was like $1.50 a yard or something. And so this is great, especially if you're starting out, to load and practice. So I cut a yard and then I've just cut it in half. And so we are going to load a quilt. We're going to pretend like this is a long skinny quilt and we're going to load it. So any quilt that I load them in half. So I fold the back. So this is the back. And so I fold it in half and I make a finger mark, or I use the friction pen that is in your box if you're going to purchase that box to try out all my favorite stuff. And so I just use a friction pen. I make a little tiny dot at the center and then I flip it over to the bottom and I do the same thing. If it is my own quilt or a practice quilt or something that I don't care about, sometimes I will take a pair of scissors and just snip it. And then that'll leave you a little V, and then that's your center point. I don't do that on customer quilts, but I do also another way that I do it. So, and then so this is your leader on the back. This I don't know for sure what these bars are called, the back bar. But so anyway, I have the center of the pole marked with a little mark, and then I have the center of the leader actually marked as well. So I know the center part of this. Mine is a 10-foot frame. This frame is a 10-foot frame. So I have the centers of the leaders marked so I know where the center is. So everything I do with longarm quilting is from the center out. So we will want to go to where we mark that little mark, and we're going to put, so these are the pins that I use. They're basically like corsage pins. I used to be in the floral industry, and so the same pin that you use to pin on a boutonniere or a corsage. These are the Handi Quilter brand. I have also purchased some off-brand, and this little bowl has a magnet on it so you can set it right on your poles and it doesn't wiggle around. So I'm going to take my center part and I'm going to pin it right into the center mark of my leader. And when you're pinning, you do want to make sure that, so on my website it does say to make sure that your quilt is square. It's important, especially for the backing. I know that might not seem like an important thing, but for the backing to be this part to be cut square. Because if it's all wonky and crazy and you're trying to pin it to a straight piece of fabric, it's going to create all kinds of ripples and bubbles. And I know that there are a lot of people that starch, and if you have starched and you didn't do a super thorough job and all of your piece is real stiff and starched and there's a spot on there that isn't stiff and starched, that will also leave some room for error. You could, possibly, I have had some issues where it goes up to that spot that's not as heavily starched as the rest of it, and it can pucker it because it's kind of just like a real loose area, because it didn't shrink up as much as the starched area. So it can be so you do want to pay attention if you are starching a big backing. I personally don't think that starching your backing is necessary from a long arm point of view. If you want to starch it so that it shrinks at the same rate as your front, then that's your prerogative. But from a long arm perspective, it doesn't matter if the back is starched or not. So now we've got that part. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to line up our center, and then we're going to line that up with the center mark. And then we're going to pin it. And there are some red snappers and some other Velcro and zippers and a lot of other options for when you're loading your top. I'm just kind of old school and I just prefer to pin. So I always have someone comment and tell me that there's a red snapper out there, and I just don't really, I have them and I don't like them. I don't really use them. especially for this machine, because when you put the red snappers inside, they go inside this little area here, and because this machine doesn't have very much throat space, if you put that red snapper in there and then you also have something that's got minky, it just takes up a little bit extra space as you're advancing it, and I wanted that extra little space. So now I have this one pinned, and so you have the bottom, and so we're gonna roll it, and then we're gonna roll this one. So now we have one piece. And you probably want to do your pins. I am sometimes a little bit lazy about how close I put my pins together. When you're starting off, you probably want your pins almost touching. That helps just so that there's not a lot of ripple in it. But for sake of time and the fact that I'm not a beginner anymore, I'm just going to do that. But if you are a beginner, you might want to just pay attention to how close you keep your pins. Okay, so oh, I'm getting ready to sneeze. Excuse me. Okay, so I use this little clover tape measure. A lot of times it's a good thing. So mine's 18 inches. So it's a good little thing to keep next to your machine. So this piece is 18 inches. So typically what I do is if my quilt top, so obviously these are two cut pieces that are the same. So that's not exactly like doing a quilt, but we're going to do it anyway. But if my quilt top that I'm quilting is, let's say, 60 inches, I usually cut my batting 63 inches so that I have about 1.5 inches on either side. That's usually my rule of thumb. If I have a quilt that is 60, I'll cut 63. And then on my batting, my backing, excuse me. On my backing, I usually try to keep at least 4 inches wider on either side than the quilt top. So if your quilt top is 60 inches, I want 4 on this side, so that's 64, and then another 4, that's 68. So I want the backing to be 68 inches wide, and that allows for the clips. So these are coming from the side, and so when you have a large quilt, the center of it can kind of, just sort of sway, and so they have these, so all of the long arms have some clamps. They're all a little bit different, but the clamp is to clamp on the side of your backing fabric. And so then you pull it tight, but not so tight that you're pulling it. You don't want it to like stretch it. And so the reason why I want 4 extra inches is because that clamp is on there, and there's usually 2 clamps, and then when we load the front, the quilt top, we want the quilting to go over that edge so that it's not inside the edge of your quilt. So that's the reason why you want that other couple of inches. So you want to be able to go over your quilt top. The quilting pattern, the pantograph, you want it to be able to go over that quilt front by, 1 inch or so. And then you also want that extra for the backing for your clip to hold on to. So that's the reason why you want that extra. And so on this side, while we're doing our little demonstration, I'm probably not going to use the clips, but I just wanted to show you that is the reason. So now in theory, since this is 18 inches, we technically would want the quilt, we would make the quilt, about 15 inches. And so that would go over the top, and then it would give you the space on either side. And I'll move the camera so you can see. So that's your backing, there's your clips, and so this is your quilt top, and so you have that extra right there and right there. And so if you go over your quilt by 1 inch with your pattern, then you also want that extra so that you're not running into the clamps. So that's the reason why we're going to do the extra. But for today's demonstration, I'm just going to do the front and the back exactly the same, put some batting in there. That way we have all of the quilting surface to actually use for this demonstration. Okay, so for our batting, I have a lot of little scrap pieces under here, and actually I'm going to show you a little a little batting trick. So we're going to Frankenstein some batting. So I'm gonna cut it over here at the edge. Okay, so we want to make sure, so we have these 2 pieces of batting, and we want to use both of them. So we're gonna pop this row up, or this, and we're gonna put that down below it just so that you can see a little bit better. And so we're gonna overlap them. And then we're gonna come over here and we're gonna cut it at an angle. We're gonna make little curves. All right, so we're gonna make little curves, and then we're gonna take this top part and we're gonna throw it away. We're gonna take the bottom part and we're gonna throw it away. And then we are able to just push those together and make a nice seam. And the reason why you don't want to cut a straight line is because once you've quilted it, you don't really want your your difference to be, you know, just a straight line. It's better if you kind of rearrange the seam a little bit. Okay, so another tip, you can use any kind of interfacing. Like the Pellon 906F that I use for t-shirt quilts. It has the backing side has the sticky stuff on it where you press it with an iron. And so if you want to, you can put scrap pieces of the Pellon interfacing that you have, and then push those together. Or you can buy these little rolls just for convenience, and then you just cut it, and then you can just press that with the hot iron, and that will keep your layers of batting together a little bit more securely than just quilting over them. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the bobbin and changing the needle. So the bobbin, that's your bobbin space. And so I usually take my paintbrush and I just brush in there. And then the oil. This has got a little pointy spout, and you just point it right there. Squirt just a little bit, don't do too much. And then you want to replace your bobbin or check to make sure that it is full. And so this is what the bobbin looks like, and the bobbin genie. So there's your bobbin, and then your bobbin genie. You want to make sure you clean that out. Actually, if you look in there real close, I don't know if you can see it, but I have a little piece of fuzz right there. So it's a good idea to clean inside there, and then it's also a good idea to clean underneath this guy. If you put a little business card or a piece of paper and you just push that business card up underneath there, it will poke out if you have any dust or fuzz that's kind of underneath that layer. And then I also give it a little quick blow, so we can put our bobbin genie back inside there. And then the black part is the magnet. It goes inside there like that. And then you just pull down until it clips or clicks. Then that goes in until it clicks also. And now we're done with the bobbin. Okay, I put a little piece of blue fabric here so you can see it. So the needles that are in your box, the thread boxes that I have just stocked on my website, which is thread-graffiti, they're going to include some needles. These are the needles that I use, not necessarily the ones that you need to use, but definitely there's a few in the box for you to try. These are the 16-inch, the 16 size needles that I like. So for this machine, you just unscrew that little screw, and then you pull out your needle. So on a regular standard machine, the needle has a little flat side. And with a long arm needle, it doesn't have that. It's just round all the way around. However, on the bottom of it, there is a little crease. And you can see the little crease. And so the little crease goes on the back. So I take out the new one, and then I leave the old one over there. And then I flip it over until I can feel the little crease, and that we want it to go directly to the other side. So the crease is here, and then you flip your hand over, so now the crease is facing backwards. And so I try not to move my hand too much, and then I put my fingernail up underneath there and hold it. And then I take the needle, the point of the needle, and then I try to make sure that it is straight. Then I just finger tighten the screw, and then I use my little screwdriver to tighten it. And then your hole for your needle should be directly facing forward. And then this needle just goes into the trash. Okay, so when we're changing our needle or our thread color, I just pull that out and trim it off a little bit. And then this is the new thread that we're going to put on here. This is going to be a navy. This is a glide navy color. And that's just going to go right on there. And then we're going to take the two pieces and tie them into a super basic knot. And then pull them, and then I usually trim off so that there's not a ton of extra. Then I pull that until it's past this first little thread catcher. And then this is my thread net. And what I do with the thread net, this one's actually been used a little bit, so it's kind of stretched out. When you first get them, they'll be skinnier. And it just goes down on the bottom, and then it just cups the cone so that it just kind of keeps the thread from coming out too quickly. So now the thread is real loose, and we're going to just go down to where the needle is, and we're just going to pull it. And we're going to pull those two pieces until it comes through the front. And then we want to make sure that you just want to make sure you check your line. Check your tension line so that your thread is all the way through the tension discs and that you're still in all your the thread path that you need to be. Okay, so we've gone through all of the items that are in our thread boxes that are available on my thread-graffiti.com website. And so we've gone through our different threads, our needle, we've gone through our little thread net, the bobbin genies, the bobbins. We've marked, and we used our scissors to cut. And so that is the contents of this first box. If it goes over well and they sell out, then I will do a second box with a different variety of things in there to try, items that I really like that you might like to try too. So make sure you check those out at thread-graffiti.com. Give this video a like and subscribe if you want to come back and hang out with me next time. Thanks a bunch for watching.